When can I expect my child to be able to read?
Most children learn to read in first grade. Some children will learn earlier that, and some children will learn later, but most children will learn to read sometime during first grade. But what I wanted to point out to you, that learning to read is like riding a bike. You learn all different parts of riding the bike. The balance part, pedaling the wheels, steering, and that's how reading is. You learn different parts. They learn the things that I've been talking about, the letters, the sounds, the sight words, and it takes time.
A sight word?
A sight word is a common word, a high frequency word that you see in books. So the word like the and is, you see them commonly, and they become automatic to children once they've seen them over and over again. And it sometimes takes 4 to 15 times for kids to see that same word before they have it automatic in their head. Mm-hmm. And that's, again, why reading with your child and having your child read those simple emergent books really helps, because they practice those high-frequency words. So I think what parents think it's going to be easy for their child to learn to read, and it's a process. So they begin to read, and a lot of parents will say to me, well, they're just memorizing the books.
Yeah.
But that's the first step, because they're looking at the print, they realize which direction the print goes, left to right, top to bottom. Those are all skills they're learning. And we forget that we know automatically go left to right, but kids don't on the page. So they have all the print awareness skills that they have to learn also. So they put all these pieces together, and then they begin. And then there's several different stages that they go through to the emerging reader, who there's very few words on a page, and then up to the first level, where it's an easy reader. It's a little bit more print on the page. And then the next stage, where there's even more words and less pictures.
So those are the books I've seen maybe at Walmart and Barnes & Noble and different places where they have like numbers on them?
Yes, and they have all different leveling systems, and that's why it's kind of difficult to know which book to choose.
Should my child read?
Yeah. So your best bet for when your child first starts reading is just emerging is to ask your classroom teacher.
Okay.
Do you have some books that I could use?
So once my child's reading and they start reading, I feel like, I don't want to mess it up. How do I help them? How do I coach them, be there? Because like you said, reading is automatic for me now, and I don't want to over correct.
Well, you want to encourage them to read and help and encourage them to reread books that they have. Some suggestions for, as your child's reading, if they make mistakes or they don't understand a word, you might give them some specific strategies, like look at the beginning sound. And at first, children are going to look at every single letter, and that's okay. They're going to try and sound out every single letter, and that's okay at first. But as they get better at reading, you want to start pointing out those letter patterns that I talked about, and splitting words up, learning the syllables, which is part of that phonemic awareness that I perhaps didn't mention. But you want to teach kids syllables in words, and they just need to hear the syllable so that when they start reading, they can know a 2-syllable word. For example, cookie, and they would split it, k-key, and they could look at the letter pattern. You may say to them, what's the beginning letter? It's a C. What sound does C make? K. And then look at that O, that's a sound, k. And then let's look at that K. What sound does K make? K, 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 cookie. The more sophisticated they come with their letter patterns, and they start to learn what letter patterns, what sound they make, and it's a slow progression through first and second grade. And you can talk to your teacher about what the sequence is, what's the scope and sequence for phonics, and what sound are you working on, and what sound can I point out to them, and they can tell you more about where they are in the phonics piece.
So I can do the same thing at home that they're doing in the classroom. Exactly.
And if your child, if it's a phonetic word that they can actually sound out, like hat, at, then do that with them. But if it's a word that is not phonetic and they don't have it in their sight word, their automaticity in their head, then you can tell them the word. You know, there's nothing wrong with giving them the word so that they know what it is. It's good to teach them strategies to figure it out, to decode the words themselves.
So what if he makes a mistake when he's reading? And, you know, do I correct it? Do I just keep listening?
I would correct the word. I might give them a strategy to look at it before I corrected them and say, let's look at that word and see, you know, can you figure something out about that word, like that beginning sound or that ending sound, and see if they can fix it themselves.
Because sometimes I notice a guess. Like, I'm remembering the word these the other day, and it was actually the word this. And I think he was looking at the picture and he's just like these instead of this.
This.
And so I was like, well, you know, there's some sounds there, but I didn't know what to do, so I just let it go by.
Yeah, and sometimes you want to because you want to build the child's confidence. It depends on the situation, but you don't want to be constantly telling them they did it wrong. But if it's, you know, you would like to make sure that they see that they've maybe made an error, you know, occasionally. So you might bring their attention to that. You know, this is what you said, this. Let's look at that. Would that be this, or is there an E in there that makes a long sound? So you might want to give them a strategy to look at that word. But you don't want to make children feel like they can't read, that they can't read.
Right.
However, you don't want kids guessing at words either. And that's what we used to do a lot. We'd encourage kids to guess at a word, and we really want to teach them how to look at the word and figure it out, how to decode it.
So go back to those sounds and those different things you talked about earlier.
Right, exactly. And kids will naturally look at the pictures and try to guess words. That's a natural thing to do, and we want to encourage that. Look at the picture, figure out what the story might be about, but we also want them also to look at the words and be able to figure out what the strategy is to figure out the word attack skill to get that word, to decode it.
Wow. Well, I feel like I've learned a lot about reading, and I'm excited. I'm excited to get to work, and I think I got today, like before I knew, well, he's learning what he needs to learn in school from his teacher, and I'm just doing a little bit. But it feels like after this conversation I have more of a, like I need to be there. Like,
you need to have an active role.
Yes.
In his reading, and you can be your child's best coach, and encourage and practice reading. And even if you're uncomfortable with teaching, you know, doing some of that teaching of the phonics and not really knowing for sure, but just allowing your child to reread those books that they bring home with them, or the books that you have in your home, because you want to have a lot of books in your home for them to have opportunity to read.
Yeah, it's a good thing we have the library.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, thanks. Thanks for meeting with me today.
You.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Melissa.